Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video we are doing what a lot of people have been asking for, which is a kind of collection video slash comparison video of all of the DC variant Play Arts Kai figures. So this is all of them. They're in no particular order. This is just kind of the way I set them up. And yes, we're still on this same shelf with not so great lighting, but it will have to do because it's the only option I have at this point. So what I'll do is I will just run through each figure quickly, briefly, kind of give you a general idea of how I feel about the figure. None of them are without any faults. Some are far superior to others though, just in general. I'm not going to talk about, well, yeah I will I guess probably. So let's just start at the end anyway. Like I said, no particular order. This is one of the newer ones though, so he does have an incredible amount of detail and a really cool design. Unfortunately, some of the engineering on this guy was not great. As you can see, he definitely can look great on a shelf, and pretty much in this pose I think is his ideal look for this particular figure, and since it suits the character, not so bad. You know, I think it's one that's probably worth picking up even though it's not great. Actually, they're all worth getting, even though some have more flaws than others. It's just a matter of being aware of those before you buy it so that you don't expect to get something that you won't. So Darkseid's definitely a cool one. I think his concept is much cooler than the actual execution, but it's still a cool figure. Same thing with Joker. He's definitely not bad, but he does have some things that I think could have been executed more effectively. The little coattails don't really articulate that well. The joints are really loose. And I think the head could have been a lot cooler than it is. It does grow on you, and it's not so bad once you get used to it, but he definitely could look a little bit cooler and less weaselly, I think. But he does have a really nice design overall, and he looks nice on a shelf. So I do think he's alright, just not as good as he could have been. Harley Quinn, I think, is... if you're okay with the design, she's as good as she could have been. She's really well executed, looks awesome. I personally don't mind the blue instead of black. A lot of people said she really should have been black and red instead of blue and red, but I'm fine with it. I think it suits the design very well, it fits her well, and she looks really good. There's no real problems with her, so definitely recommend that one. Supergirl and Superman, actually, they both have cape issues, but otherwise they're not too bad. I really like her design. She comes with the sword, which is a little bit strange, even though she did train with one. She's not really known for using a sword as much as Wonder Woman, so that's a little odd, but still cool. And she does look really good. It's just that cape isn't great, and her hair isn't great, but everything else is, it's really nice. And then they did do some variation between the metallics and the flats for those black parts there, and I just think it's a nice look for her, so I do recommend her for sure. Superman. He's good and bad. His proportioning's a little bit weird, I think, especially for being one of the later figures, and his cape is a big issue, but otherwise he's not too bad. Some people don't really like the face. I don't mind it. I think for a variant, which these are, this is just fine. So design-wise, concept-wise, it's fine. Just a little bit of execution issues, but mostly he's pretty good. Again, I recommend them all technically. He's not real high on my list, though, of being a really solid piece. Armored Batman, he is really high on my list. Obviously, he's bulky, so posing can be problematic just because you can't make things do what you want them to do all the time. But for the most part, I don't really have any gripes with this guy. Really solid figure, both in design and execution, and then also in weight. He's a really solid figure, so very, very cool. If you're a Batman fan, this is probably a must-have. The original Batman, which is, I believe, the first one that came out along with Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, he's probably one of the weakest. His concept is good, but execution not nearly as good as some of the later ones. His head's a little bit small, torso's a little narrow, arms and legs are kind of lanky, but the concept is cool other than the grappling hooks on the cape, which are highly unpractical or impractical, whatever that would be. But otherwise he's cool. It's a pretty cool design, decent execution, and it's still a cool Batman figure. It's just not one of the best of the bunch, but definitely has some things that are really good about it. So again, you guys should check out all of these individual reviews where I go into detail, but I recommend him. He's just not great. Same thing with Batgirl. She's got her share of issues, but it's a cool concept, and I do like the figure overall. Just a few issues. The hips are really wide, and some people say the boobs are too big. I think it's just mostly because of the armor, so it doesn't really bother me, and they don't stand out, no pun intended. So I do like the design of her a lot. She looks a little bit more like an owl than a bat, but still looks cool, and she matches this Batman over here, design-wise, for the most part. So she's good, she's just not great, so she's not real high on my list. Flash, once you get him posed, he's pretty good, but again, he's got some serious proportioning issues. His waist is super tiny, and his limbs just kind of look like they're connected unnaturally. But he does have a cool design, so if you're a big Flash fan, don't worry too much about this guy. He'll be worth getting, you won't have too many issues. But if you're not, then he might be toward the bottom of the list. He does have his fair share of issues, despite a cool design. Now, Cyborg is half of a cool design, and then half not. I really like the main part of his body. They did a good job with that. I don't like the arm cannon, and I don't like the thrusters on his back, which you can't really see here, but again, check out the specific review for this guy if you're interested. For the most part, he looks awesome, and they did a good job with execution and design. Just not great with some of the design elements. For me, as far as actual practical applications, the gun falls apart and the backpack thing falls off pretty easily, and sometimes he's hard to stand, but otherwise he's alright. So if you like Cyborg, then go ahead and grab this guy. I think you'll be pretty happy. Hawkman is one of my favorites, despite the only real main issue he has is his neck is a little long. His wings are really, really impressive, and the rest of the figure is pretty darn good. I like the variation in the greens and blacks and golds as far as being metallic or not. So that's pretty awesome, and he just looks awesome on a shelf. So Hawkman is definitely one I would recommend. Wonder Woman, even though she's one of the first, she's one that I definitely recommend also. I think she's one of the most, I mean, it's a simple design, but they did a really good job capturing Wonder Woman, and it's a solid figure. No real issues with anything. So people say she can't stand. I've never really had a problem standing her up. Every time I've done one of these, I've never used a stage. And you can pose her, and if you wanted to pose her more dynamically, you can. You just have to turn the ankles so that she stands up. So I don't really mind. I do wish she came with a sword, but other than that, she's a really solid figure. I really like that one. Aquaman is another one that's really, really good. He doesn't have too many issues at all. I definitely recommend him 100%. If you are an Aquaman fan, get this guy. If you're not, then maybe get him anyway. Just like me, he's still a really cool figure, good design, good execution. Green Lantern is one of the worst, I think, out of the bunch. I gotta move this light a little bit so that maybe we get some more light on this. That's not gonna work. Let's try this maybe, and we'll turn him a little bit so we get better lighting. Okay, so concept-wise, he's really cool. He's got some translucent parts in his armor, lots of metallics, so that's good. But his Green Lantern energy thing is mostly yellow, and his hips are huge, and his arms are kind of small, so he's just a little odd looking. If you're going to get the rest, I do recommend him, because he matches, and once you get him posed, he's not horrible. Like you can see here, he doesn't look too bad, but his thighs and hips are really big, and like I said, his arms are kind of small, so does have his fair share of flaws, so he's not high on the list. The ones that are high on the list, just for a quick recap: Aquaman, Hawkman, Armored Batman, Harley Quinn, and that's pretty much it for the definite gets for sure. The rest, you guys can kind of pick and choose from what I said, so you can get the idea. But I do like this line a whole lot. The other Batman that's coming out with the Catwoman, those are technically not part of the variant line. They are a separate batch of figures. And then the Batman Through Time, whatever that is, technically not part of this line either, so this one is done. The DC variant line is done. We're going to have Marvel, and then those two other kind of sub-variant lines with Batman and Catwoman. So I will be reviewing those, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see those reviews, and probably the Marvel ones too, because I think I'm going to be getting all of those. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you can see that stuff, and in the meantime, keep collecting.